Hey there, and welcome. In the world of nonprofits, we all know that every single donor relationship is precious. But what if you're only seeing a tiny piece of the picture? Today, we're going to talk about a really important shift in perspective, one that can unlock some massive, hidden potential in the supporters you already have.
So let's start with a question that probably keeps a lot of fundraisers up at night. You work so hard to bring people into your cause, right? But keeping them seems to be this constant uphill battle. So why? Why is it so hard to keep them engaged? Well, what if I told you the answer is hiding in plain sight?
I want you to just look at that number for a second. $65 billion. That's not just a statistic, It's a massive wake-up call for the entire charitable sector. It's a sign that what we've been doing just isn't working like it used to.
Yep, that's how much charitable giving in the U.S. has plummeted since just 2021. And on top of that, fewer people are donating, especially those small-dollar donors that are the lifeblood of so many organizations. Look, we can't just work harder to fix this. We've got to work smarter. And that all starts with our data.
So what's really going on here? For a lot of nonprofits, the problem isn't that people have stopped caring. No, the real issue, it's a blind spot, a huge one, hiding right inside your own database.
Okay, this slide right here, it just lays it all out perfectly. On the left, in your system, you've probably got three totally separate people. Robert, who made a donation, Jane, who volunteers her time, and Bob Smith, who came to your last event. They look like three different contacts, but what's the reality? On the right, you see they're all part of the Smith household. And when you see them that way, suddenly you see their combined impact. That right there is the blind spot we're talking about.
And believe me, this blind spot, it is costing you, big time. The numbers don't lie. It costs 10 times more to go out and find a brand new donor than it does to keep one you already have. Think about it. Every time you fail to see the bigger picture, you risk treating a deeply committed family like they're just a few strangers, and you risk losing them for good.
Amanda Jarman from Fundraising Nerd just nails it with this quote. How many of us have seen this happen? Two identical letters show up at the same house. It's not just wasteful, which is frustrating enough. It sends a message to your donors. It tells them, we don't really know who you are. And that's a huge missed opportunity to build a real connection.
And hey, if you're feeling this pain, you are definitely not alone. This is not some small niche issue. A whopping 54%, that's over half of all organizations, say their biggest hurdle to effective fundraising is incomplete or just plain wrong data. It's a system-wide problem that needs a new way of thinking. Okay, so that's the problem. It's a big one. But the good news is, there's a solution. It's about a strategic shift, right? We need to stop looking at individuals and start looking at the household. It's about finally seeing the whole story of how your supporters are involved with your mission.
And that solution has a name: household giving. It's pretty simple, really. It just means you combine every single touch point, every donation, every volunteer hour, every event ticket, from a whole family into one single record. When you do that, you get this crystal clear view of their total impact. Basically, you stop seeing just a bunch of random transactions and start seeing the real relationships behind them.
And when you do this, the payoff is huge. Seriously. Your records are suddenly clean and unified, which leads to way better insights. Your communication gets a major upgrade, so goodbye to those embarrassing duplicate mailings. You actually save a ton of money on outreach. And the best part? All of this lets you be so much more strategic and ultimately more effective in your fundraising. All right, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds good, but does it actually work? Well, let's let the data do the talking, because it tells a really powerful story.
Okay, check this out. This is exactly why that household view is so critical. On average, households that have a volunteer give over $13,000 a year. Compare that to households without a volunteer who give just under $5,000. Now imagine this. Maybe the wife is the volunteer and the husband writes the big checks. If your system sees them as two separate people, you'll never know you're sitting on a potential major gift from that family.
And wow, it gets even more dramatic when you start looking at wealth. Affluent households give, on average, over $33,000 a year. That's literally 10 times more than the general population. Being able to identify these powerhouse households by looking at their combined family picture, well, that's how you focus your efforts where they're going to have the biggest possible impact.
Okay, so you're probably on board with the why, but what about the how? This might sound like a huge, overwhelming project, but I promise, it's not. We can break it down into a really simple, practical path forward. It really comes down to 3 key steps. That's it. First up, centralize your data. Get everything out of those 50 different spreadsheets and into one system. Step 2, define the relationships.
Pick a primary contact for each household and then link all the other family members to them. And third, and this one's huge, automate your reporting. This way you can see what's happening with a click of a button, not after hours of manual work.
And let's talk about that third step, automation, because it's a total game changer. We're talking about cutting down the time your staff spends on mind-numbing data entry by 20 to 30%. Think about all that time your team gets back. Time they can spend actually talking to donors and building relationships instead of being stuck in a spreadsheet.
All right, so you've made the shift. You're thinking in households. The final piece of the puzzle is tracking your progress. You've got to measure what really matters to prove that this new approach is actually moving the needle.
This table here is basically your new toolkit. You get to stop just tracking total dollars raised and start asking much, much smarter questions. Your household retention rate? That tells you if you're building real, lasting relationships. The average household gift size shows you if you're actually inspiring people to give more. And things like RFM analysis and lifetime value, they help you pinpoint your most engaged families and see who has the most potential for the long haul.
And here's the real key to all this measurement. You have to compare it year over year. That's the only way to spot the real trends and see if what you're doing is actually working. Are your relationships getting stronger? Is average giving going up? This is how you finally move from just guessing to having a real, data-driven strategy that shows true growth.
So, that brings us to the final question. And this one is for you. When you go back to your desk, just think about this. What hidden stories, what untapped generosity, and what incredible potential is currently locked away inside your donor data, just waiting for you to see the whole picture?